Hey guys, welcome to another video. I realise I've not actually done anything for about 2 weeks, is it? Maybe more than 2 weeks. I do apologise for that. I've just had an exceptionally busy past couple of weeks. I am still continuing with my channel. I am working on some big things in the background for the channel as well. So make sure you do hit the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. I will be going to the Frankfurt Motor Show next month. Most of the big manufacturers have got some pretty exciting stuff coming out over the next 12 months, 24 months, etc. A few videos ago I did do a bit of an introduction to this BMW 1 Series, but I didn't get to drive it. So in this video I'm kind of going to go through a bit of everything, so the practicality side of things, the driving, costs, and everything you'd really want to know about the BMW 1 Series if you are just interested in one, or you're potentially looking to buy one in the near future. And I'll also talk about some of its comparisons, so the Audi A3, the Mercedes A-Class, what else is there, the VW Golf, so I'll try and get some stats of all of them and do a bit of the legwork for you guys that can't be bothered to do it yourself. Right, so let's get into it. Now, if you didn't know already, I used to have a BMW 1 Series before my CLA 45 over there. The only difference being that I had the Sport model and this is the M Sport. So there are some differences that I will show you around in terms of the exterior and actual things that actually affect the driving. So this is the 2017 model, although I believe there's a facelift revision of this. I think it's very minor. I think it's just like, I think the dials inside are slightly different. In terms of other changes, I'm not too sure. You might have to check yourself, or I'm sure someone in the comments will point them out for me. I suppose the biggest difference on this car from this is the 116D. It's the same model that I had. However, they have reduced the size of the engine. So previously, I think pretty much all the diesels had a 2-litre diesel engine. With the 116D now, they've reduced it to 1.5 litres. In terms of, do you notice a smaller engine? Well, it still puts out the same amount of power as the previous generation. I think it's around that 115 up to 120 maybe, just try and slip out the sun. So the power output is still the same. The main difference really is that it's even more economical than it was before. This car does like 1 million miles per gallon. It's been here for about over a month now, and we only just put some diesel in it literally the other week. So I managed to get 4.5–5 weeks from one tank, which it's ridiculous, especially when with my CLA 45 I'm having to fill that up pretty much every week. So that's one of the great things about economical diesel cars. Right, in terms of practicality, let's take a look inside. In terms of spaciousness, I think when you compare it to the other hatchbacks, the A3, the A-Class, they are very similar in terms of design, layout, etc. It does, if you are a bit of a taller person, it doesn't have anything like a sloping roofline or anything like that, so it does make headroom a bit easier. The headroom in this is actually better than the CLA, which is a bigger car. In terms of the boot space, I looked at some figures beforehand. So in terms of boot space, with the rear seats up, it's about 360 litres. If that means absolutely nothing to you, the A-Class has the worst sized boot. I think you can get, it's 340 litres, something like that. 360 isn't the best. The new A3, it's 380. I think the Golf also is 380 litres as well. With the rear seats folded down, I think all of them around 1,200, 1,300 litres ish. Yeah, there's just some numbers for you really. as I've already mentioned, this is the M Sport, so you do get, I'm actually genuinely surprised, in a good way. BMW interiors generally fall behind, particularly in the lower models, fall behind Audi, Mercedes, even Golf now in my opinion, in terms of just they look a bit old-fashioned. With the M Sport, it's actually quite nice, if I'm honest. You do get these, like, is it Alcantara, fake Alcantara? I have no idea what they call the material. It's this Alcantara-like material with the blue M Sport stitching, some more accents and just small touches here and there which make the car look a bit nicer, really. You know, right down to the gear lever, that's also an M Sport gear lever. The steering wheel that you will find across most of the BMW range now, that only comes with the M Sport. If you do get the Sport model or the one below, you get the old chunkier style steering wheel, which I really don't like it, and it does look really old-fashioned. Whereas this, you know, when we're driving, I'll tell you, I actually really love this steering wheel, more so than the one in my CLA 45. It's just so good to hold. The material and everything like that, it's top quality. But as I said, you know, that is an M Sport thing, so that's just something to bear in mind. Exterior wise, you know, if you watched the previous video, I did do a bit of a walk around talking about the exterior and everything. I won't go into it too much. I want to get to driving it. You guys haven't seen that yet, but in terms of exterior styling, you know, you've got bigger tyres, slightly different design. You've got the M Sport body kit, and what else is there? Standard tinted rear windows. What else? Yeah, again, rear bumper slightly different. The M Sport does have that glossy grey touch, makes it quite obvious that it's an M Sport. Right, that's enough waffling around the car. I'm going to set up the cameras inside, and I'm going to take you guys for a drive and let you know my thoughts on the BMW 1 Series. So what is this car like to drive? I've got something in there. Yeah, let's move these out of the way. Okay, there we go. This is a lower spec 1 Series. It's just a car that gets you from A to B with some amount of fun, style, etc. As I mentioned, this is an M Sport, and normally when you think about the M Sport across the whole BMW range, a lot of people do say just avoid the M Sport and go for the Sport model, because they say the suspension is it's too stiff, coupled with bigger alloys and low profile tyres. And you know what, I'm actually pleasantly surprised again, because the ride isn't anywhere near as bad as you think an M Sport would be. It's either that or the Sport model just rides like a cloud, but you know, it really isn't that bad. You know, we're going over semi-broken speed bumps, to be honest, and it doesn't crash really loudly or anything like that. It's perfectly fine. In terms of performance, as I mentioned, it's around that 115-ish. I'll put up the comparison stats for the similar models across the Audi, Mercedes, VW, but you know, they're not too dissimilar. The only big difference between actually the 1 Series and all of the others is that this is rear wheel drive, and rear wheel drive is a bit more fun, to be honest. It's a bit more connected with the road. You can feel more of what's going on in terms of, you know, when you throw it around a corner. Again, I'm not really going to do it right now because this is a 116D. But you know, if you were considering a slightly higher model or just remapping this, which is exactly what I did to my old one, it took it up to the performance figures of a 120D, and you know, it transformed the car. It felt like I had a new car again, and you know, with that extra power you can kind of be a bit more playful, have a bit more fun with the rear wheel drive, and that's something you just don't really get with the other cars because they are inherently front-wheel drive. In terms of where this car sits and just as a manufacturer in comparison to the other Germans, I suppose, if you are considering, if you've clicked onto this video because you're wanting to buy a car like this, and you're not too sure yet, you're just doing a bit of research, well, for the whole driving experience and fun factor, you'd go for a BMW. I'm talking lower down the model, so the 1 Series, A3, etc. If you want something that's just a really nice place to be in terms of the cabin and the quality of materials, Audi. The interior quality and just the design of the A3 is just, it's miles better than this. It's just a very nice place to be. And then if you want something that's just just quite stylish overall, it's the Mercedes A-Class. We're both in interior, exterior. The A-Class is quite popular, to be honest, for people that are considering cars like this. The Golf again, that's very common on British roads, but it's very well priced. And speaking about price, the 1 Series is actually quite expensive to begin with across all the models. Why that is, I'm not too sure. It might have something to do with the rear-wheel drive system. It is generally more expensive to implement. The gearbox is actually quite nice. You do get, as I mentioned, the M Sport gear knob. It's really nice to hold. It's got like a soft touch leather all around it, so it's quite comfortable in your palm. One thing I will say is that I think this is across basically all manual BMWs. They do have quite heavy clutches. If you're used to something else and then you come to this, it's quite a heavy clutch. This is compared to everything else I've driven that's been a manual. Is it a problem? Not really. It's just a bit unusual if you've never driven a manual BMW before. Gears 1, 2, 3. It's, driving around town it is perfectly fine. It's got a relative amount of grunt. It's just in gears 4, 5 and 6, so when you're on dual carriageways, the motorway, it does lack any kind of go. You do need to really drop down the gears to try and shoot off, but that's what you'd expect, to be honest, for a car with that amount of power. One thing that I forgot to mention, that I mentioned when I was outside, this steering wheel, it's it's the nicest steering wheel I've ever held, driven with. It's just, first off, it's quite a skinny steering wheel, to be honest, but I'm pretty small myself, so I haven't got massive hands or anything like that, so they fit perfectly in terms of my palms, blah blah blah, especially where I'd hold them. Nice little grooves. Normally, a lot of steering wheels, you'll have all the leather around the top and the bottom, but where you actually put your hands, it's like a hard material. So that's exactly how it is in my CLA 45. I mean, granted, I haven't got the AMG steering wheel, but it's so annoying. You only really notice that over a long journey. It can get a bit tiresome. But this, no, it's ergonomically, it's extremely well designed. It's also, so I've mentioned leather. It's a really, really soft touch leather. I don't want to push it too hard, just in case I leave a thumb mark, but it's just so soft to hold and just very nice to hold. I think this is the steering wheel you would get if you had an M140, unless you had can you option a sport steering wheel for the M140? I'm not too sure, but yeah, it's definitely miles better than the standard one you'd get in the Sport or the SE and in previous generations. But as I said, this is part of the M Sport package. Inside, in terms of the door bins, so the door bin is split into three separate storage areas. Now, it does look to me a bit shallow. So if you have got a water bottle that's bigger than, say, 500 milliliters, it would struggle to actually just width-wise fit anywhere. It is, but I'm nitpicking there. It's perfectly fine. You've got two Very ergonomically placed, what am I looking for? Cup holder. You know, in the Mercedes, it's kind of like back here, which is it's a bit fiddly, if I'm honest. So that's very well spaced, and then you've got like another tray to put. Well, what I've put here is the keyless key. So yeah, that's something to know. The 1 Series does come as standard with keyless go, which even in my CLA 45, it's an option, which is a bit stingy really. But it depends, you know, whether you want a keyless start or you physically want something to start the car. You know, from a personal viewpoint, I generally do slate the BMW interiors in the lower models. I know in the new 5 Series, 7 Series, it's an absolute tech fest, and it's all very nice. But lower down, you know, they've dropped behind, you know, Mercedes, Audi. They've taken big steps forward in terms of interior design and just making everything look a bit more modern. With the M Sport, it does make a big difference in terms of the little touches you get. If you do get something like an SE or a Sport, it will look lacking. Like, out of the three, I think this is the most expensive. It definitely won't feel the most expensive on the interior if you do get a Sport or an SE model. Anyway guys, I think I've covered most of the key points there. If I haven't, and you've got any questions of your own, you know, feel free to pop them down below in the comments section. I'll do my best to try and answer them. As always, thanks for watching. Do make sure to subscribe. As I've said, I've got quite a lot of stuff planned for the near future. I know most of August is basically gone now, but early September into September, as I mentioned, the Frankfurt Motor Show, which I'll be attending. I'll be doing lots of video stuff, lots of video content over there. See you all soon.